Greetings, Gilliam the Rogue here, once again, back with an Elder Scrolls Online build video. Today we're going to be updating the Stamina Nightblade for Dragon Bones. So, not too much has changed with any of the Stamina builds, honestly, in terms of gameplay interactions or balance changes. It's more so just our interaction with off-balance, the ease of access of resources, and some more gear choice diversity, although that hasn't really been changed. It's just more pronounced and people are talking about it more. So we're going to be going over things a little bit more briefer or quickly than we normally would, so this is going to be a little bit more condensed. If you're looking for more in-depth explanations of abilities, why we use them, and stuff like that, check out the link that just popped up in the corner talking about more in-depth stuff. It was for the Clockwork patch. Again, most of that information is up to date. It's just more in-depth. So, Stamina Nightblade. Very, very powerful class, especially with the Dragon Bones patch. We've seen an indirect buff due to the excess or increase of resource management with the interaction of off-balance. However, we are still incredibly difficult to play, more so with how difficult it is to interact with off-balance now, and what it means for us with resource management and whatnot. So let's start talking about race. So in Dragon Bones patch, in terms of meta and interactions with gear sets, etc., etc., Redguard is now number one, hands down. They're going to be able to scale really, really well with a powerful set. However, it isn't a one-size-fits-all. They have amazing resource management. They have extra stamina. They're really, really strong. Number two is definitely going to be Khajiit, coming in very close, but still missing out by that cigar. They have a really nice crit chance. However, with a item set, you don't really want to pair them together, so Khajiit sees an indirect nerf in the sense of interaction with sets. With mobility, they're a little bit better than Redguards because they have that crit chance ramping up, so you can put dots on a target as you're running away, so you're going to have a little bit more damage in that regard. But in terms of sustained damage or target dummy parses, Khajiit is definitely missing out in a little bit. Other than that, Wood Elf, or Imperial, Orc, those are all relatively decent choices, but you are going to notice a pretty large DPS difference in terms of min-max. However, most players don't think 1,000 to 2,000 DPS is that much. So, if you are one of those people, then feel free to take whatever race you want. However, if you are looking to push as much damage out of it as possible, definitely go Redguard or Khajiit. Redguard probably going to be your best bet. In terms of Mundus stones, so Lover, if you are not attaining penetration cap, as a DPS, your number one goal in terms of setting up gear, CP, yada yada, penetration cap is your number one goal. If you're doing a target dummy parse and you're not at pen cap, you need to hit it. If you're not at pen cap and a group doesn't want you to be, then you need to be factoring that in. However, I don't see the point of not being at penetration cap. A good DPS and a good player will always adjust to their situations. So if you're in a group, Lover might become redundant. But if you're solo, Lover can be very, very powerful because you are not able to access as many penetration options. So Lover is really good. However, again, it does have that chance to become redundant. So if you're in a group with like Night Mother's Gaze, Alkash, Sunderflame, you don't need Lover. Go with Warrior. But if you aren't, and you don't have access to that, then definitely go with Lover, or you can still go with Warrior if you do want that extra healing from the weapon damage scaling. So that's really, really our best two options is Lover and Warrior. Lover, in most situations, for the average player, because they're not going to have access to the really crazy tank who's got Alkash and Torgs and doing all these crazy things with another buddy and Sunderflame and Night Mothers, so definitely go with Lover, otherwise, again, Warrior. In terms of consumables, so if you're a Redguard, you can easily get away with blue food, especially with off-balance present in the group as well as synergies. But if you are not a Redguard, you definitely want Dubious Cameron Throne. That is going to be your best bet because sustain is quite the bitch without off-balance or resource management, and Redguard kind of fixes that for us because we have the OP Adrenaline Rush passive as well as a higher stamina pool, meaning we get more resources back from Undaunted Synergy or Undaunted Command, getting that 4% resources, so it's really, really strong. Just quick go to that. At 4% of your maximum resource, 1,500 stamina whenever I hit a synergy, and then if that's an orb or a shard, I'm already getting about 4k from that, so it's almost 6,000 stamina back every 20 seconds, and then every time you hit a conduit or a liquid or something like that, you're getting another 1,500 stamina. So Redguard is really, really strong because your stam pool is just incredibly high. So Redguard definitely going to be that. And then use that with blue food. And then if you're not, then definitely go Dubious Cameron Throne. Those are the only two options I would suggest for consumables in terms of food. Now for potions, Essence of Weapon Power Pot. This is going to be your best bet because you Brutality and Savagery indefinitely when paired with 3 points of your medicinal use passive. This is very important to get. It takes about 20 minutes to just, you can just Google alchemy guide and figure out which combinations to do. It's very, very quick. It's very cheap. Get this passive and then make these potions. If you're looking to save a little bit of money and you're not min-maxing or you're doing like overland content, you can use junk stamina potions. I don't have any on me because I'm on the PTS at the moment, but you'll be losing quite a bit of damage as well as healing. So these are really nice for sustain. Our passive that gives us ulti-gen when drinking one, so you want to drink these babies down. It can get pricey, but again, they're relatively cheap to craft if you are getting the majority of resources yourself. Go pop in IC or something like that. Very, very easy to get. The other consumable we'll be using is Damage, Health, Poisons. Now, these are going to be put on our back bar for a bow because we're going to be running a Berserker enchant here, so we don't really want to run anything on our back bar in terms of enchants because they're not all that great. So we definitely want those Damage, Health, Poisons. Those will carry over because they're a damage over time. They're really, really strong, easily doing about 1 to 3k DPS in single target. They only are single target though, but there's not really much else. If you're really, really cheap and maybe you're a newer player and you don't have access to money or materials, you can use a Crusher enchant on your back bar, but do keep in mind in groups people might get upset because that will be overriding some other Crusher enchants, so it's probably not your best bet. You can also use Absorb Stamina enchants on your back bar, or maybe Drain Stamina Poisons if you're really struggling with Sustain, because that will help you be able to dodge roll and cast Vigor a little bit more, especially if you're doing Maelstrom Arena or something. So that covers that. Now let's talk a little bit about our skills. So I'm just going to explain what they are. If you're looking for why we run them and how to use them, check out that link. So Rending Slashes, Relentless Focus, Surprise Attack, Killer's Blade, Deadly Cloak. Keep this up 100%. Some people tell me, hey, Gil, isn't it a DPS loss to cast this and execute? Yeah, but guess what else is a DPS loss? Dying like a monkey because you don't have 25% damage mitigation. If you are one of these people, you're doing it wrong. So you always want to keep this up all the time unless you know you can avoid damage. And most of the time that's not going to happen in 4-man veteran hard modes or trials for that matter. So keep it on. Then we're going to have Soul Harvest. Why Soul Harvest over Incap? Ultimate generation, especially when paired with War Machine. You want that 10 kill or that 10 ultimate on kill. If you're looking to cheese a target dummy and get the big dick parse of 50k, you can go with Incap, but keep in mind that doesn't mean jack when applied to a real situation, because that ulti-gen is invaluable, especially with a few other options that I'll explain in a bit. On our back bar, Trap Beast, Poison Injection, Endless Hail, Razor Caltrops, and then a Flex Spot. I really like Leeching Strikes here for a little bit of healing as well as stamina management. You're also going to get a tiny bit of ultimate generation from that too. If you're looking for incredibly high damage and you're a really good player, maybe you're doing a 4-man dungeon, not so much a trial, you can also run Reaper's Mark and put this on a target that's about to die and you get a huge burst of damage from Major Berserk. However, this is a very difficult thing to do and it doesn't fit in all situations, especially with trial fights where there aren't a lot of adds to be killing or something like that. Reaper's Mark, probably not your best bet. So you can also run Mirage and become even tankier and make up for the Nightblade's #1 flaw, which is sustainability in terms of surviving. So Mirage will help a lot as well. Otherwise, I really like Leeching Strikes. Then we're going to have a few ultimate options here. You can double bar Soul Harvest if you're wanting to keep that assassination passive active on both bars. Do keep in mind though that critical hit damage is not a considered a raw stat that applies to damage over time effects. So if you cast Trap Beast without that assassination passive and bar swap, it'll still get it because it is not considered a normal stat. I'll explain more in a video in the future describing how dots inherit their stats and whatnot. But you don't necessarily need to double bar an assassination skill as of I believe it was no, not Dragon Bones. I believe it was Horns of the Reach when a lot of this information changed, or Morrowind. I don't really remember. But, so you can double bar that if you do want the juicy crit hit damage on both bars. Otherwise, you can run Soul Tether if you're looking for a big on-demand stun for healing. Really good if you're new to Maelstrom Arena. You can also run Veil of Blades if you're looking for a tiny little bit of group utility in form of defense. You can also run Flawless Dawnbreaker for some passive damage. Do keep in mind that the only thing that this is really going to be applying to is Rearming Trap, because when you bar swap off, all of these dots will buff up with their front bar, so you don't really need this. But Shooting Star is my personal favorite, especially when paired with War Maiden, or War Machine, not War Maiden. Don't want to run that on a stand build. War Machine, because you get insane ultimate generation, 12 whenever you hit an enemy, up to 72 if you hit all 6, and then if you get killing blows, Soul Tether, or Soul Harvest will give you another 10 ultimate, so you can keep up War Machine even more than you normally would be able to because of this. It's really, really nice. Even though it's a Magicka DPS ultimate, it'll still do great AoE DPS for you because of that ultimate return with Soul Harvest and War Machine. So really, really good group utility for AoE. So that covers that. The other thing is if you're doing 4-man dungeons and maybe you're not running with a healer, maybe you're going like super aggressive, you can also run Reviving Barrier. It's a personal favorite of mine when I'm running with newer groups or teaching players or something like that, especially when paired with Soul Harvest. You're going to be able to keep this up like crazy. The heal over time persists through it breaking, so it's amazing in terms of a defensive group-oriented ultimate. So that goes over that. Now let's talk about gear. So this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So there's a lot of gear diversity in Dragon Bone's patch. However, it does depend on your race. So again, if you are a red guard, you're going to have a really strong option, which is called Mechanical Acuity. You've probably already heard a lot of people talking about it. However, this is not a one-size-fits-all. This is a very baity set that a lot of people think is a lot better than it really is because it looks good on target dummies. But guess what? That's not what real combat is about. Real combat has a lot of mechanics, a lot of movement, a lot of different stuff that doesn't necessarily fit into the favor of Mechanical Acuity, because the way it works is after it activates, you have a 5-second window where you get 100% crit chance. So you do a lot of damage. But if you misactivate it, let's say you accidentally swap to your front bar, or you swap right as a boss is doing his mechanic, you just wasted a tremendous amount of DPS. And if you aren't able to manage this properly, or you're doing a fight where there's just way too much movement or volatility, like Asylum Sanctorum or something like that, you don't necessarily want to run this set. If you're a Khajiit, you don't want to run this set because you're going to have too much crit anyways. So this is a very niche set that requires you as a player to A, understand where it fits in, and B, to play around it. So if you're unable to do that, maybe you're a newer player or maybe got slow hands or a little bit lesser reaction times, do not touch Mechanical Acuity with a 10-foot pole. Do not believe what people are telling you, because this is not a do-free DPS unless, again, you're doing a target dummy. So don't be jebaited, as I would call it, into running this set, making it all gold, stuff like that. It can be incredibly powerful, but guess what? It's still incredibly close to our other options that we can run with this set. The DPS difference is very, very small. So while it is a great set, it is incredibly niche, and you need to keep that in mind. Am I a Khajiit? Don't want to run it. Am I doing a fight with lots of movement or volatility? Don't want to run it. Am I a newer player who can't manage all of these different things? Don't want to run it. So if you are, though, great. It's great. You want to run 1 axe, 1 dagger with it. Why dagger with 100% crit chance? Because when this is on cooldown, which this is only up about 27% of the time, that crit chance will come in handy. Double axe will reapply too frequently because it increases the chance and it does not stack, so you'll be missing damage there. Axes are also pure single target. You can't have them on multiple targets at once because it doesn't proc off of our AoE. Blade Cloak won't proc it, Steel Tornado won't proc it, Dawnbreaker won't proc it. The only thing that will proc this is two-handed carve, but guess what? You can't use dual wield with carve. So if you're using two-handed instead of dual wield, you can run an axe with carve. That AoE will proc it because carve is not a true AoE. It is considered melee damage for whatever reason, but everything else, axes are pure single target. You don't want to run swords either because they are additive percent, not multiplicative, so you get way less than 2.5% damage per piece. So 1 dagger, 1 axe, definitely your go-to. Then on our back bar, we're running that Maelstrom bow. Really, really nice. In terms of mechanical acuity, again, you want it on your dual wield bar, so it's only active on your 5-piece, so you can control when it procs. That way it doesn't proc on your back bar when you're putting on your dots and stuff like that. So you're going to want to run 3 armor pieces with that dual wield set, so you have that active. Nirnhone main hand, infused offhand, that's the same for anything, regardless of what set you're running, yada, yada, yada. Then for our other 5-piece set, you pair this with War Machine for even more burst. That way when you activate that Soul Harvest or that Meteor or whatever it is, you get a huge damage buff for you and 2 nearby allies. Hopefully that will also proc when Acuity is happening and you'll do even more DPS. So it's a really good set to pair with this. Otherwise, War Machine is usually the staple set that I run unless I am solo. And then I'll be running jewelry. You can get it in gold or purple, and then 2 armor pieces as well. Then we're going to be running a monster set with that, preferably Veladrath for most situations. If you are doing a lot of AoE, you can run Mephalas or Stormfist. However, Veladrath is really good for AoE and cleave DPS. Really, really nice. You can use Crags if you're not at pen cap, like let's say you're in an unoptimized group. You can run that, but its hitbox is really, really small, so it's pretty hard to micromanage that on top of everything else. So that covers gear. Divines on all of our armor. You can go infused on big, but you'll still lose a little bit of DPS. You will get a tiny bit of resource management back because you'll have a higher stand pool, especially as a red guard. You can do that. Weapon damage on all of our enchants. If you're a newer player, you might want to put 1 stamina cost reduction enchant on your jewelry. It is superior to regen, just because how global cooldowns and stuff work. So but weapon damage on everything is my go-to. Poison damage, main hand, Berserk offhand. Make sure that, again, is Nirnhone main hand, infused offhand, regardless of what gear setup you're running. And then on your back bar, Nirnhone with those juicy, juicy poisons. So, what else can we run? So if we're not going to run Acuity, maybe we're that Khajiit, maybe we're doing a really high volatility parse, then you want to run a support set or a penetration set. So Twin Fang Snake, if you're solo, is my go-to. Really, really nice, fantastic set. You want to make sure this is permanently active, run it on 5 body pieces, and then run War Machine, dual wield, and jewelry. That way you get a huge burst of damage for you and your group. Maybe you're doing it with a Magicka DPS and you have that Twin Fang, really, really helpful. Otherwise, for solo, also really, really helpful. That's a good set. You don't want this active on 1 bar only because it will fall off, making you have to restack it every single time, and that can be a pretty big DPS loss. What else can we use? Vicious Ophidian. This is mainly for solo or Maelstrom Arena, which is solo. You get an incredible amount of resource management from this. Even as a red guard, it can help a lot, especially in VMA. You get speed after it too. It's a really nice 2 through 5 piece. You get weapon damage, 2 crit bonuses, Minor Slayer, as well as 8% cost reduction and a huge burst of stamina and speed when you kill an enemy. It has a 1-second cooldown, so you can get a lot of stam. So really, really good set. If you are running this with, let's say, Twin Fang, then you want to run Vicious Jewelry and then Dual Dagger or 1 Axe, 1 Dagger. Dual Daggers for AoE, 1 Axe, 1 Dagger for single target. Dual Daggers can win, again, if you are running a lot of crit hit damage, but if you're running Acuity, don't run Dual Daggers. What else can we run? If we are in a group, instead of running Twin Fang, let's say we have a few stamina DPS buddies, you can run Night Mother's Gaze. I do not suggest running Sunder Flame because you don't want a heavy attack a lot as a stamina build. Rather put that on a Templar or a Dragon Knight or a Sorcerer, but a Nightblade has a lot of crit chance, the highest crit chance in the game, so Night Mother's Gaze makes a lot of sense for us. In that case, you can do dual wield Night Mother's Gaze because it lasts so long that even if you bar swap off, you'll have 100% uptime. So dual wield and then 3 armor pieces, and then pair that with War Machine or Vicious Ophidian jewelry and 2 armor pieces. So that should give you everything in terms of gear. I know that was quite a bit. You have to kind of nitpick, go through stuff. If you're looking for beginner stuff, you can go with the classic like Hunding's Rage, 3-piece agility, like another 2-piece set like Ashen Grip that you can craft, or maybe 4-piece Ashen Grip, and then maybe fit in a monster set as you ease off that Ashen Grip for that health. But Hunding's Rage or Night Mothers will work really good if you're a beginner player, and then just buy agility jewelry. You can also run things like Leviathan that comes from Crypt of Hearts. You can run Defiler if you're really, really struggling with DPS because it's a proc set, so it'll give you a little bit of free DPS while you're learning the ropes. I definitely don't suggest sticking in that if you are trying to become really, really good. Don't rely on proc sets in PvE because they can't crit. But yeah, you have quite a bit of options. You can figure out what works for you. So hope that helps with everything there. Let's talk a little bit about CP. So I've kind of moved away from explaining CP in my videos because it's not a one-size-fits-all. CP is very diverse. It depends on what you're doing, what kind of player you are, what kind of build you have, what race you are, what gear you have. There's so many factors, and I really dislike suggesting CP because people usually follow it too closely and don't understand the implications of it. But for this build as a red guard, this isn't min-max, this isn't anything like that. This is just a really easy kind of versatile setup that you can run. But again, keep in mind, if you're looking to get as much out of it as you can, it is highly dependent on you as a player and all those variables I explained. So don't expect the best DPS out of this suggestion. So we have 43 Mighty, 22 Piercing, 48 Precise Strikes, 52 Thaumaturge, 73 Master at Arms, a lot in here, especially as a stand blade. We got a lot of direct damage, and then 2 Physical Weapon Expert. Why this? Because I wanted that Butcher passive. We were so close to it anyways. Get some extra weaving damage and execute. Everything else here is relatively straightforward. Maybe if you're doing a little bit higher mobility fights, take some points out of here and put them in Thaumaturge and Precise Strikes instead. Piercing, make sure you don't over penetrate. Again, 18,200 or 18,200 penetration or mitigation is the max that a target will have in PvE. So never be above that value. You're going to have to add up things like Major Breach, which is 50 to 80. If you're running any penetration sets like Sunderflame, Night Mothers, Alkosh, Torig's packed with an Infused Crusher enchant, there's a lot of different stuff. You're going to have to add that up and figure it out for yourself. In terms of the red tree, this is a really good situation that fits in everything for PvE. 37 Hardy and Elemental Defender. Spend these first, commit them, and then spend points elsewhere. Do not spend points in the other two first. There's an old bug from Morrowind. I don't know if it's still here because it's such a pain in the ass to test. I just do this out of ease of access and never having to worry. So spend 37 in Hardy and Ellie Defender first, then hit that R button, that commit, or whatever button it is on Xbox, and then spend your rest. Then you're going to put 81 Ironclad and 73 Thick-Skinned, 1 into Spell Shield just because we had 1 extra, and then 11 into Quick Recovery. You get that Field Physician passive, especially if you're doing like Asylum Sanctorum or a Trial, and you're not playing with God's Gift, everyone's MLG Pro getting no death. This is a really helpful passive that will help you stay alive while you're rezzing an ally. So I really, really like this for a lot of different situations. Otherwise, if you don't have this, or you don't necessarily want this, you can take those points out and go up to 81 in Thick Skin and then put the rest into Spell Shield. In terms of green CP, we have 49 Tenacity, 37 Mooncap. This is pretty much all the sustain we need. Then we're going to go 34 into Shadow Ward, 44 into Tumbling. This is really helpful for when you need to block. This is helpful when you need to dodge. 34 Warlord and 42 Sprinter. You sprint a lot as a stamina build, and you don't necessarily break free too much as a stand build, but these really help. And that way you have 75 in all of these nodes, so if you're like me and you like being really efficient, you can do that. But again, CP is preference for the green and red tree, so figure it out for yourself if you don't like that. So that covers pretty much everything. Again, I'm not going to go over too much in-depth information in this one. I will show some parses, though, with this class. I think I missed one of them. So with this one, I believe, what were we in? It looks like we were in Major Slayer, so we were running War Machine and Twin Fang Snake in this one, and we did a whopping 47.3k on a 3 million target dummy. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. I could have sat there and cheesed even harder. I could have run Crags instead of Veladreth, but this was in 2 Valley, 5 Twin Fang, and 5 War Machine with the Lover Mundus because I'm not at pen cap. You can run Warrior if you want so instead. But 47.3k, pretty respectable, but again, doesn't really mean much. This isn't trying to boast at look at how good this is. I wanted to show the difference between this and Acuity. So even as a red guard, now let's go check out that Acuity parse. Acuity did 47,480. So literally 172 DPS difference. That's it. Granted, there could be volatility in this. 3 million is not totally representative. If you wanted to get a really good average parse, you'd do the 25 million or the 21 million or even the 50 million. That way you get a really good baseline, get rid of things like crit RNG variability. Human error becomes a little bit more stabilized because you make more mistakes over a longer fight, so they kind of become equalized, and then you do like 1 or 2 parses, maybe even 5. The more the better, take averages of them and all that stuff. But look at that. Even though everyone's hyping up Acuity to be the greatest thing ever, it's hardly different from just running Twin Fang or some other set. So don't believe the hype. It is a good set by all means, again, this isn't totally representative, but they're very, very close. Still doing very respectable DPS. If you wanted to sit here and cheese all day and get even better Twin Blade and Blunt procs and better crit chance on all this stuff, you could get even higher. You can still hit the beloved 50k with the stand build on the 3 million target dummy. But again, keep in mind that doesn't necessarily mean jack squat. And then finally, since everyone is constantly asking, what gear are you wearing? What are in terms of visuals, like, oh, what outfit is that? With the outfit system, I will start including that at the end of my videos, just because everyone asked that, and I don't want to take the time to respond to that all the time, because I have better things to do, no offense to you, but I'll just include them in my videos from now. So helmet, Dark Brotherhood, then we have Ebon Shadow Arm Cops. This is, I believe, medium, Dark Brotherhood, heavy Ebon Shadow, medium Dark Brotherhood, light Dark Brotherhood legs, heavy Dark Brotherhood boots, and then buoyant armature dagger and sword. Why one sword, one dagger? I came from WoW. That was the meta from that game, is you had dagger offhand for really fast attack speed and then a slow weapon in your main hand. So I like to pay homage to that. I really miss my robe from WoW, but I'm not going to go back. So yeah, that covers that. And then Noxophilic Black and Lycopanth Gray, and then whatever base shit. So if you're into that appearance, you really like the Dark Brotherhood look, then there's that. So hope you guys enjoyed this information. I know it wasn't too revolutionary, but not much has changed. Again, it's just a big change with off balance. Make sure you heavy attack that target when you see the dizzy swirlies, as I would call them. You can see it, it'll be notified even on consoles by buff tracking. It's a little person who's like blue and white, kind of like they're phasing out of existence, and then they have like a little swirl around their head. Heavy attack, and then you can also find off-balance immunity by someone who looks like they're standing like this. They're a little bit gray. Keep an eye on that. When it's reaching 0, maybe wind up a heavy attack. That case, if off-balance applies at that last second, you get a huge burst of resources, and you can heavy attack again or even twice and get up to 3 heavy attacks off in that duration and get disgusting amounts of stamina. So really, really important to be keeping an eye out for that. Again, not going to go over rotation in this because that's in the other guide, so if you really want that, check that out. But again, hope this has helped, and I'll see you guys next time. A huge shout out to these phenomenal people going the extra mile to help me stay afloat financially in and out of game. The recent support from the community has been tremendous. Skinny, Venosi, Yoda, Romeo, Muggsy, Jacques, like everyone just donating so much, contributing so much. I've been able to make so many improvements. I can't even fit your names on the screen anymore. It's truly amazing. We've been able to get a capture card working on second monitors, just improvements to streaming and video quality, almost in the way of getting an editor and stuff. Just, I can't believe how far we've come in the past year or so, and it's truly been an honor to be a part of this amazing community, making this game into something bigger than that, and just truly being floored by how fantastic and generous and amazing you are all. So thank you so much for everything. I really, really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a good one. See you guys around.